As of 2023 to 2024 academic year, the United States has 5,819 colleges and institutions, university institutions, which are eligible to participate in federal student financial aid programs. Of these, 2,691 are classified as four-year institutions. Why is that relevant? I'm going to tell you. As of mid-2024, approximately 1/3 of the 146 top-tier research universities in the U.S. have established their own venture funds to support spin-outs and startups, according to globalventuring.com. This means that around 50 of these institutions have such investment vehicles. Despite the growing recognition of the importance of university-affiliated venture funds in fostering innovation and commercialization, the majority of leading U.S. research universities have yet to establish their own funds. Tulane, its leadership, its board, are forward-thinking and progressive to approve establishing its first venture fund. Tulane Ventures launched under the Tulane Innovation Institute. It's a $10 million seed fund dedicated to supporting early-stage ventures in Louisiana. The fund invests between $25,000 and $250,000 in companies led by Tulane University professors, students, alumni, and Louisiana-based entrepreneurs. It primarily focuses on industries such as health and medical technology, climate and energy solutions, and artificial intelligence or tech-enabled type startups. Unlike many other university-led venture funds that focus primarily on faculty-led research commercialization, Tulane Ventures takes a broader approach by investing in a diverse range of startups, including student and alumni-founded businesses, as well as community businesses. Tulane Ventures leverages the Institute's mentors, programs, and partnership opportunities to foster long-term entrepreneurial success. By combining financial investment and strategic support, Tulane Ventures seeks to strengthen the entrepreneurial ecosystem at Tulane and across our region, ensuring that innovation drives both economic development and social impact. And because this is New Orleans Entrepreneurship Week, I thought it would be fun to share with you today, we are announcing another investment in Tulane Ventures. So I'm going to be joined by Kalen Hall, who is the CEO of Informuta, who is receiving a $125,000 investment. So Kalen, come on up here and let's have a check moment. All right.
There you are.
So Kalen is one of our portfolio companies and will be joining us on the panel today. But before we get there, I'd like to turn it over to our esteemed moderator, Andrea Moffitt Turner. Please join me on stage. She is a venture fund founder, a member of our Tulane Innovation Entrepreneurship Council, and a member of the Tulane Venture Fund Investment Committee, and she will lead today's conversation. Please put your hands together for Andrea Moffitt Turner. Kalen, Rebekah, and Brett. Where is Brett? Is he hiding?
I think he's in the green room.
Okay, we'll grab him.
Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly.
You're so welcome.
Wonderful to be here, and we're going to have a dynamic conversation with two of the founders in the Tulane Ventures Fund. As Kimberly mentioned, I'm actually on the investment committee, have been, and I'm a Tulane alum. What year? 2000, coming up on my 25th anniversary, or reunion, I mean, and really been so fun to be involved in the Innovation Institute since the beginning, and watching the flourishing of the Institute and the Ventures Fund. So incredible, Brett, to have you here with us for the conversation, and Kalen and Rebekah, excited to hear from you as your journeys as entrepreneurs out of New Orleans and Tulane. So I thought we'd kick off with a quick rapid fire. Rather than me give a little bit more about your background, each of you introduce yourself and share with everyone in the audience what your company does in 1 minute, if you can, but importantly also what sparked your impetus for becoming an entrepreneur. You know, I love, Brett, how you mentioned in the conversation with President Fitz how so many new entrepreneurs are looking to do things to really have a better impact in the world. We have a lot to do in health, and both of you are in the health world, so it'll be great to hear from you about what motivated you to start your company. So we'll start with you, Rebekah.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Rebekah Gee. I am a Tulane faculty member and OBGYN, and am fortunate to be the parent of 5 children, 2 sets of twins and a middle son, and have been in a variety of roles, including Secretary of Health, where I led our expansion of Medicaid. Nest Health came out of my frustration with the abysmal outcomes for mothers and children in the United States. Just was so tired of paying the bills for things that could have been prevented, seeing the results of what happens when you don't take care of children and mothers. And so what Nest does, in brief, is we work with health plans who are Medicaid health plans, so lower income Americans. We identify all of the mothers and children who did not get any primary care last year and are using the ER and have other chronic conditions, so they're higher cost, not getting care. And then we wrap around them, and we are the first company in the United States to provide primary care completely at home and virtually to the entire family as a unit. So children, mothers, fathers, adolescents, and we have now treated over 1,200 children in the New Orleans area. Today we launched with Arizona. We now have 28,000 people in our nest. And we are raising our Series A. We're going to kick that off with a term sheet, hopefully. So it's a delight to be here. So privileged, and we are very privileged to have been the very first check that Tulane wrote. So thank you to Kimberly and all of the staff here at Tulane for your support of local entrepreneurs.
Hi, I'm Kalen. So I'm a recent PhD graduate at Tulane in the Biomedical Sciences program. I graduated last March in 2024. So the Informuta spun out of both mine and my co-founder's PhD work here at Tulane. So we invented the technology together during our PhD work with our advisors. And so really the company was inspired because we built this platform that can look into the DNA of bacteria and from then give the full profile of what drugs would work or wouldn't, so what's resistant, what's susceptible. And what's really novel is that we could actually predict what drugs the bacteria would acquire resistance in the future, so kind of giving this forward-looking warning metric. And very serendipitously, we had these very exciting preliminary experiments in fall of 2022, and then Tulane announced this massive launch of this Innovation Institute, and back then I was a aspiring student who wanted to be a tenure-track professor, and I even thought about biotech startups as an option for my career, and really owe a lot to these folks for opening my eyes of what we could do with what we were building. And so from then we kind of started the company and never looked back. And actually my co-founder Leo ended up in the ICU with a multi-drug resistant infection for 3 to 4 weeks right after we started the company, and I think that was really sealed the deal of how big of a problem this is and how little solutions doctors have right now to find the right treatment at the right time for people. So yeah.
Well, building on that, because I'm just remembering as we're sitting right here in the Commons that you won or were part of the business school competition. Yeah. So just not only the Innovation Institute, but also the competition, you won that. Was that a year and a half ago? And look how far
it was
things have come.
Like exactly a year ago.
So for all of those students or faculty thinking about starting companies, Brett, you mentioned what you saw at UT and at Penn. All of these things have opportunities to create sparks and
absolutely,
and really launch businesses. Brett, in your conversation with President Fitz, you mentioned that you've looked at was it over 3,000 startups, and you've invested in I think 170. That's a lot of companies.
No, we've
something
invested
like that. 140. 140. I got my numbers wrong.
Yeah.
I love that you already talked on kind of 5 critical fundamentals that you look at in founders and companies in terms of mindset, but also in terms of business model. Can you share 1 or 2 others for those in the room that are both entrepreneurs or maybe investors in terms of what really stands out that you look for as you look at in backing founders and new companies?
Yeah, one we didn't get a chance to talk about is the team, which is obviously incredibly important. I actually think it's the second most important factor because business model, I think, is the most important. But the team is really, really critical. And one of the things that my wife, Deborah, and I look for is there someone on the team that can build the solution, so they can run through the walls to like really get the solution built? Is there someone there that can service it? And then is there someone there that can sell it? Now, sometimes that's in one person. Like that was, actually Michael Dell was able to do all three of those things. But that's super, super rare. My current venture, data.world, has 4 of us as co-founders. There's 2 that can build it. There's 1 that can sell it. Well, there's actually 2 that can sell it and service it. And so, you know, that dynamic is very important because I want to see that on the founding team. Like one of the things that will scare me off is if you meet a founding team and they're like, actually, you know, I just have all the development offshored, and I'm like, well, who's managing that? Oh, I'm managing that, and you know, it's all over in, you know, India or China or some other place. And I'm like, well, what happens if it really has a meltdown? And they're like, oh, that's fine, you know, they'll just get on it. There's nobody that will care about the business more than a founder and co-founders. And so I really look for that dynamic on the whole team. I think that's super, super critical.
That actually came up today in our advisory board meeting for the Innovation Institute in terms of, you know, within a university, how important it is, interdisciplinary learning and matchmaking of talent. I share that experience having invested in both tech and healthcare. The ability to marry technical as well as commercial experience is so critical, and both of you've done that.
Yeah.
And it is something that all investors, you know, are looking for because it's what differentiates companies. And on the investing and fundraising front, Rebekah, you just mentioned that you're kicking off your Series A, but you've already successfully raised seed and funding, and Kalen, obviously you just got presented with a check. I think it would be valuable for those entrepreneurs in the room to hear a little bit about some, you know, maybe one best practice or one takeaway in your experience on fundraising that you want to share with any entrepreneurs in the room. Maybe Rebekah, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brett that grit is the primary qualification of a successful fundraise, right? You will be told no. I have been told no hundreds of times, and I have been told my idea is stupid. You know, it's Nest Health, right? I'm a physician. I've been a policymaker. I know it's not dumb. I knew it was needed, but so many people told me this isn't doable. Nobody wants this. You know, I can't see it working. They'll give you all kinds of feedback, right? Investors will, and some of it is valuable, but at the end of the day, you have to go to your own moral and leadership compass in your team and say, look, what is the right direction? Do we believe our business model is working? Do we have customers? Do we have traction? And how are we doing? And then you just hold to your North Star, because there are 1,000 opinions on 100 matters. And so I do think that has been the main thing that is different. You know, when I ran a Department of Health, frankly, a much more easy job, right? As I think the most difficult thing about being a startup founder is that you have to hold your company together through your belief and grit and your confidence in the future. And you can't lose that. That's what propels you, because you'll have failures, you'll have no's, and then you'll have just, all it takes is one yes, and then you keep moving.
And do you mind if I just say something really quickly? So I just want to make this point. I have never started a business that the majority of people I pitched they've all thought it's stupid. Okay, so like that is super normal. So I just want to just double down on what you said.
That's great to hear.
That, yes, it is very normal that, especially the more different it is, the bigger the change in the world, the more people think it's dumb. So that's normal.
Well, the breakout founders always are seeing around corners in a way that most people have not thought about yet, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Kalen, you obviously spinning out of Tulane, you know, can speak to that experience, and in your early in raising funds, I think, you know, kind of completing this initial round, and they'll be kicking off later this year too. What is your learning experience as coming out of school and fundraising, you know, not having ever done that before?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a unique experience. I think we had quite a few obstacles I think a lot of companies don't. I mean, we had to license our IP out of Tulane. That was kind of a whole process, and I think a lot of investors also have apprehension around that. So I think we definitely needed to find the right investors that have dealt with that before and are used to seeing licensing deals and aren't as necessarily scared by companies not owning their own IP and trust that we'll build our own portfolio of IP. I think that we have to find investors that are comfortable with first-time founders and are comfortable with technical founders who haven't, we don't have any business experience. Leo and I are PhDs, and they have to trust that we can learn those skills and that they believe in us as people and believe in our grit and our strength and our work ethic, and not necessarily believe that because we have an MBA or because that we've worked in business before that we're the right people. I think people invest in us and our personalities and our work ethic and our deep technical knowledge. That's why people invest in us. And so it's a little different than a lot of startups. But I think what I was going to answer to that advice question is really finding. I think when I've had the best experience fundraising is building relationships early. So I think always be raising, always be talking to investors and building those relationships early on, so that when you actually are ready to raise and get the money, you have that relationship to lean on and you have that two-way relationship of trust, so you're not starting from scratch. And I think really an investment is a partnership, so you want to have a good relationship with your investor, because I think that there should be a good foundation of trust there. And really, I think, they should be adding value to you. And I think when you have a position of power and are raising from a position of power, you don't want to be in a position of desperation where you end up in a bad relationship with an investor who may not have your best interest at heart.
Yeah. That perfectly tees up our next question, Brett, for you to give some advice. You've talked, and I think highlight in your book, on mentorship and building really strong advisors and mentors around you as an entrepreneur. What would be your advice to give to founders, and both for the two here or anyone else in the room, just in terms of building the right mentors? And even I will add to this question, also picking the right investors, because you're absolutely right. I have seen bad boards. I've seen investors that are giving a lot of advice that isn't really the best advice for the business. But what would be your advice, given all of your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really complex thing, because like all things being equal, if the investor has experience in the industry you're in, that's a better early investor because they can actually help you. But there's a big but there. If they don't have humility, if they think hammer meets nail, everything is the way they did it, they don't embrace the fact that they also had luck in their career, they start to get arrogant and think that their way is the only way to do things, then you could be in for a real problem, because then it's just it's like at that point you're no longer an entrepreneur, you're just reporting to someone that's very dogmatically telling you exactly how to do things. So I look for people who have real humility, that realize there's multiple ways to do things, that are really anxious and jumping to help me. Be like, oh, I want to introduce you to this person and that person, and like this potential customer and this potential partner. So I look for early signals like that. But if you can find like people that have experience in your space and can be genuinely helpful at opening doors, that's a big part of success in entrepreneurship, is just being able to have people that have the secret codes, if you will, to unlock the gates you need to pass through to achieve new levels in the video game of creating your business. And there's people that get that helper's high. That's a term I got from my CEO coach, who's been coaching me for 16 years. And I get that too when I'm helping entrepreneurs, that helper's high of like, wow, like I actually made a difference in someone's life. So you want people that are wired that way. And I would run away from people that are just telling you that everything they did, no, they have that air of arrogance. They're very easy to spot. And basically the more money you make, the more it can breed that type of arrogance. But the reality is that anybody that's become financially successful, there was a big element of luck, and there are a lot of people that helped them along the way. They did not do it alone. There is no you do it alone. Like, I've never seen the entrepreneur that's been successful despite all odds and nobody helped them. Yeah. That's just false.
Two things that you said that I wanted to build on. One is that, in terms of the mentorship, it's really exciting what has been happening at the Tulane Innovation Institute to not only build a network of mentors for students, for founders here in New Orleans and Louisiana, but also alumni and parents across the country in lots of different sectors. So I think it's a huge opportunity to tap into finding mentors. And I think, the second piece that you mentioned is really finding those mentors and that are going to be giving you information that you want to iterate and build. A lot of it you might want to discard and take note of, but move on. But there's often some nuggets of information that may make sense to incorporate in the business. So a lot of opportunity to take advantage of that.
Can I make one point on this too?
Yeah.
So this is a hub, right? Tulane University is an amazing hub of amazing people that have graduated from here. And so one of the things that I did, like when I was really starting out as an entrepreneur, that helped me the most was leveraging the network of the alumni network. And it's very easy to get someone to return your call if you're an aspiring student entrepreneur and there's an alumni that sees a little bit of their past in you and can relate to you and has that social tie. And so you guys are in an amazing hub, and I would just leverage that to the absolute max benefit because they want you to succeed. They want you to succeed. They want you to become donors to Tulane, get involved in things like this Innovation Day and the innovation initiatives here. So they actually want you to succeed, and they have that social tie built in.
Yeah, absolutely. Fundraising in Louisiana and beyond. Both of you obviously have raised locally. Would love to hear about your experience with that, but also, being able to find nodes of connectivity to be fundraising, especially given your particular areas. I mean, innovative business model within health, as well as, in the biotech space, and, leveraging networks to be able to get exposed to the type of investors that have expertise in your space. Because I think, Brett, your comments are really important. You really do want to be finding needles in a haystack of investors, especially as you scale, that really understand what you're doing and want to back you along the way. So maybe, Kalen, anything from your perspective in terms of that question?
Yeah, I think definitely. So I think most of our last round came from both New Orleans, and then also we actually placed pretty high in the Rice Business Plan competition last year, and so a lot of it came from the Houston ecosystem. So a lot of kind of leveraging the networks and also the exposure, kind of using those like business competitions as a springboard was really, really helpful, especially in those earliest days when you're such an early company, when no one wants to take that risk on you. Kind of having that like social capital is so important. And then now when we're gearing up for this upcoming raise, we're out in San Diego now, so we kind of have a different ecosystem to tap into. But I think we still leverage everyone here, and I think my biggest success in fundraising always comes from warm intros and using our network and our advisors and everyone that we know just to see, because I feel like when you have like a hub of 100 people, it's always just like second and third degree connections. Someone always knows somebody.
So in my case, I got lucky. Brett talked a lot about this. I had the opportunity to know someone who you may know is Joe Lonsdale.
Oh, of course,
with
yeah.
ABC.
Yep.
And so Joe, I had a background as being a government iconoclast, and went to Joe and said, here's 20 ideas of what's broken in government that someone should fix. He said, well, how about you fix it, and here's some money to go
That's
do
awesome.
it. So that's how Nest got started. I think then the hard part started, right, which is to build the idea and to convince others. I think we've had a lot of success. We've raised over $20 million. Health services businesses are very expensive because we're not a technology. We rely on people to do the work. And so it has been challenging in Louisiana. I mean, Ochsner's invested, Tulane's invested, David Barksdale and his family have invested. We have a couple of other private individuals. I'm hoping one of you might invest, right? So that's how we do this is through these relationships. And so I think what I found is the seed capital is easy. We've really built up that ecosystem in Louisiana for seed capital, but where we are now growing, to 28,000 people, wanting to not slow down and have opportunities for growth with growth capital, that's where in Louisiana we struggle a bit, is that Series A, Series B. So it will come. We're relatively new. We're not Austin yet. This is a newer market, and what's happening today will lead to that, but I do think that is where I've had to go through my national networks, and kind of I grow out of the Louisiana funds at a certain point because of being successful and having a higher valuation.
And again, another opportunity within the Innovation Student, the network effects, and you talked about this and what happened in Austin, and to be able to build those bridges and really help companies coming out of Tulane, coming out of New Orleans, plugging into New York, plugging into California, Austin, other places. So very exciting. As we're wrapping up, because I think we're getting the wrap up, what's next for both of you? I mean, besides the Series A and your next fundraise, what are some of the big milestones that, you guys are doing really important work in a really important time? Can you give everyone, an audience, a little snapshot of what's on the horizon for you?
Yeah. So kind of since the last year when we were doing the business competition circuit, a lot has happened. So we moved out to San Diego. We're in Johnson & Johnson's innovation incubator out there. We've grown to a team of 5 full-time employees, which is awesome. We've raised about $2 million total in investment and also grant funding. We are currently preparing to submit to FDA for breakthrough device designation, and we have 2 clinical trials ongoing right here in New Orleans and also up in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. And yeah, we're very excited when we're looking to raise $5 million this year. So if anyone's interested, I'd love to talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, and we launched our $20 million Series A recently, and I would say with this, we have already gone to 2 states. We're in Baton Rouge, we're in New Orleans. We have 28,000 children and their parents, and so this next phase is about scale. Scaling to 5 additional states. But more importantly, we started Nest to change the outcomes for America's children and their moms, right? So that every child and every parent has an opportunity to thrive and get health care and be successful. And so I didn't mention this, we provide behavioral, social, and medical support. So when we're in the home, we're bringing books, we're also helping folks navigate those things. And so I think what is on the docket in the next couple of years is to have the kind of volume where we start to see generational change, not only here in New Orleans, but outside of it, and start to see our children coming to school being able to read, and starting to see moms being able to get birth control, maybe being able to get a job because they had health care and behavioral health support, seeing violence go down because we're helping dad, not just mom. We know that the leading cause of maternal death here is women being killed by their intimate partners, right? So those are the kind of things that take complex solutions, and we're attacking it all and getting our hands in that clay, but already starting to see some of those outcomes, and that is what brings me the greatest joy, is that impact we're having on those kids and families.
Amazing. Well, thank you both for being incredible founders, not only innovators and founders, but actually really building businesses, as you talked earlier about, Brett, that are trying to create really positive impact in the world. And thank you, Brett, for coming and sharing all of your expertise and insights. And I loved hearing, as someone who has built a fund investing in women founders and also backing companies trying to drive real positive outcomes, I love to hear that your book is, some of that is going towards supporting
here's a
women founders.
shocking stat for you. I mean, I was really shocked. Like, only 2% of venture capital go to female-led founders.
It is. She just went down last year.
I thought it was 1 and it went to 2 recently.
It went from 2 to 1.5.
Did it go back?
Yes.
So I mean, that's crazy, because the stats are that if there's a female founder on the executive team, including the CEO, that venture has a much better chance of being a unicorn, much better chance. Yeah. And that makes all the sense in the world why that would be the case. So yeah, that needs to change, and that will change. Yeah. It'll change.
Yeah. Awesome, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Kimberly, back over to you.
That was awesome. All right, that was absolutely fabulous. And so I'll just mention here, there's a couple of folks in the audience I want to give a shout out to. I'll start with Dave Thompson. Hey, Dave, why don't you stand up? Dave is a professor here in the School of Business, and he is supporting our finance class, where students get to learn the due diligence process and actually present to our investment committee on deals we should invest in. And so that's something that we here at Tulane are doing that I think is pretty progressive and innovative, and I appreciate your partnership and Jeffrey Silverman in putting that together. And then I want to give a shout out to Stephen Loy. Why don't you stand up, Stephen? Hey there. Stephen is part of the leadership team of the National Science Foundation Fuel initiative, which is the future use of energy in Louisiana. And so Tulane with LSU and many other partners received $160 million while we featured healthcare and biotech today, energy is a big thrust for us, along with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so Stephen's role is supporting commercialization. And so the Institute and Tulane are working closely with them to make strides here for the state of Louisiana. So we're super, super excited about that as well.